Hey guys, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're going to have a kind of relaxed day. I'm getting rained out at the field, so I figured we may as well get some work done on the bench. And that's what today is about. We're going to take a look at the Radiomaster Pocket and how to convert the case from whichever one you get to whichever one you want to get. So Radiomaster released the colorized cases in alongside the launch of the Radiomaster Pocket. So you've got some choices. There's a clear one, the charcoal one. They've got blue, pink, orange, and I think that's it. But anyway, the link's in the description if you want to get one. They are affiliate links, so if you use my affiliate links, the channel gets a little bit of a kickback, but don't worry, it doesn't cost you anything extra. Radiomaster covers that. And as usual, you know, you have to disclose this video is sponsored by Radiomaster, who sent me both the Pocket and the case for review, and they asked me if I would do a video showing how to make the conversion. So I said, of course, you know, I'd be happy to do that. So that's what we're here to do today, just a shop day. And I'll tell you guys that I have not done this before on the Pocket. So while it winds up being a how-to video, it's more like a live demo, you know, because I've never done it before. So I have had the radio open. I don't think it's going to be much of a problem, to be honest with you, but we'll get started. Let's dive into it. And you know, this is live, so I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it works. Maybe not. You never know. In the spirit of full disclosure, I will tell you that I've already done a little bit of pre-work, not much. I have a piece of high-density foam. This came in one of my airplane boxes. I think it came with the Skywing laser and a little bit of foam on the desk just to protect the surface of the radio. And then the other thing that I did is I took a few screws out of the back already just to kind of save a little time on live. But to get started, before you start tearing into it, I highly recommend getting yourself a stack of bowls like this. And the reason I say that is because you can keep major elements together. So just make sure they're dry and clean. Get yourself a stack of bowls, and that way when you take things off the radio, you can keep screws and major elements together, and it really does help organize things when you're trying to reassemble, okay? So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. And we'll start out by removing the grips. There are a couple little finger tabs right here that allow you to get your finger under there, and you pull those grips back, and there's one latch. It almost feels like it's somehow attached, but it's not. You can just kind of give it a pull straight out, and it pops off. And you go ahead and leave the stick ends in there. There's no problem with that. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Just pull it back and then pull it straight off the radio like that. So those are out. And then, like I said, in the spirit of full disclosure, I already took a few things out to begin with. So I took screws out here and here. But we'll go ahead and take these screws out on this side. So there's 4 total that you have to remove. 1, 2, 3, that's removed. And 4, that's also removed, okay? By the way, I'm using a Wow Stick. Links in the description for this as well. It's also an affiliate link. You can get them on Amazon. They're actually like 5% off right now too, so a little bit of a deal. But I love these things for working on radios and small electronics. So we'll just pop the Wow Stick in there and back that screw out. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom one. There's one. And this one's going to be stubborn. There it goes. Okay, so two screws, and then that goes with the 2 that I already removed. You can see in my bowl. So 4 screws, and the next thing we'll do is flip it back over. You do not have to take the batteries out to remove the back cover, but you will need to take the batteries out in order to put them in your next case. So you may as well go ahead and do that. Just take those out and drop them in your bowl or wherever. It's pretty obvious where the batteries go, right? In fact, I'm going to take them out because I don't want them sitting there in a bowl with a bunch of loose screws. Anyway, so there's that. And we'll pull the back cover off. And when you do that, the first thing you should see before you do anything else is this little ribbon. That's not a ribbon cable. It's just a cable, set of wires connecting the back to the front. So we'll remove that from the front right here. You could also remove it from the back. It doesn't really matter. And that's it. Now we've got the radio halves separated. So let's tackle the hard part first. We're going to take the radio apart. So I'm just going to set this bowl aside now. That's my back. Those are my back cover parts. And I'm going to set that aside for the moment. We'll come back to that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my Wow Stick tip over to a Phillips. And another comment that I get quite a bit is concern about grounding. And I can tell you guys that while I'm not an electrician, I've taken radios apart. I can't even count how many times. I guess if you want to, you know, do something, touch the ground on the chassis if that makes you feel better. And you can ground yourself. But I've taken them apart without really worrying too much about that, and I've never had a problem. I'm not saying you won't. I'm saying I haven't. That's all. But it is good practice, I guess, to wear a grounding strap or to find a way to ground yourself and discharge any static electricity you might be carrying. Okay, so motherboard screws. I took one out. We'll take, actually, before I take any more motherboard screws out, I really want to take the gimbals off first. So that's the first thing we'll do is take the gimbals out. So 4 screws on the gimbals. They're always in the corners for these. So let's see. There's one. There's one. So we'll just take the 4 screws out for each gimbal. These wow sticks are so handy for this, man, because you don't need a lot of torque, and it's not a high. This is not a high torque environment, right? It's a plastic like polycarbonate shell. So the last thing you want is a lot of torque. So these wow sticks are just really good for that because they're kind of low on torque and they help you avoid damaging. But the one thing you should know, and if you've done any kind of mechanical work at all, you don't want to start it. You don't want to start screwing stuff in with the automatic tool. You want to screw things in by hand first and get the thread started so you don't cross thread it. And of course, you get every now and then you get one that's stubborn, so get your tweezers out. All right, so 4 screws to take the gimbal out, and then the next thing we'll do, pay attention to the wiring. I like to take a look at it before I do it. So on this one, the reds are right. So if you notice what I'm talking about here, to help avoid confusion when you're putting it back together, I'm looking at the positive lead for the gimbals, and the reds are on the right. You see that? All the way across the board. Red right, red right, red white, right, red right. Okay? And even on the, what is this? They say it's the horn, so that's a speaker. Even on the speaker, the red is on the right. So just remember that. It helps you for later. Okay? So we'll take the gimbal connector off the main board, and then we'll take this gimbal connector off the main board, and then we will set the gimbal aside. Now, one thing you want to do is remember that you have mode 1 and mode 2, and you need to remember which one is which when you put them back together. So this one for me is spring-loaded, and that makes sense because I'm mode 2, so that makes it my elevator. So that's my elevator and aileron gimbal. Just going to set that in there, and then we'll repeat the process on this side. Let's take these 4 screws out. There's 1. There's 2. There we go. Drop it in the bucket. There's 3. And there's 4. Of course, they're all staying on the board, so tweezers help in this case to get those out of there. So there's 1. Feel like a dentist pulling teeth out, or a doctor pulling a bullet out of somebody. I guess I didn't get that one all the way out, huh? Yeah, I did. Come on, you. Being stubborn. But you know, this is the deal with these things. You just got to take your time. Don't monkey fist it. That's where I think a lot of people get into problems. They monkey fist things. Okay. The other thing to pay attention to is the rail that goes on the inside. Okay, so on this one, the Hall effect sensor is on the inboard, and on this one, if you remember, the Hall effect sensor was outboard. So keep that in mind when you put them back together as well. You just pay attention to little things like this, and it helps you reassemble things. It helps things go smoother. And oddly enough, another thing that helps things go smooth is the way the wires lay. I always pay attention to that. Don't mess with them because you don't want to straighten them out or anything, because when you're putting it back together, the wires will help inform where they go. It can be really useful. It's oddly useful. So just don't try and straighten them out. Just leave them curled the way they want to curl. And then when you're putting things back together, it makes your life easier, oddly enough. Okay, so that's a second gimbal. And now we're down to the daughter card for Express LRS. That's right here, and the main board. So we'll take off the the Express LRS board first. I'm going to take that off first. And of course you have to switch, and also pay attention. This one has a another ribbon cable onto the main board. So I'm going to get myself a new bowl. Those are my gimbals. Just going to set that aside so they're out of the way. I don't want to mix up my hardware. See, that's how you keep all your stuff straight. The bowls are really helpful for that. All right, so let's take off the Express LRS daughter board. And that is a 1.5 mil. I don't have that handy on my wow stick. I just have the 2.0 and the Phillips. So I'll just use this for that, which is fine. So remove the daughter card or the module board or whatever you want to call it, the Express LRS board. And we're just going to take that one off, and we're going to take this one off. Now, I've looked at this and I thought about it and I've studied it. And one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to remove that elephant snot. And the reason for that is because I don't have elephant snot and I don't want that UFL connector. I think that's UFL, right? I don't want that to be moving around inside my radio. So I'm going to do what I can to preserve that elephant snot, which means I'm not going to take that connector off. If you have elephant snot and you can replace it, that's fine. Go ahead, knock yourself out. All right, so we'll release the cable from the main board and we will just set it aside. That's all I'm going to do for the moment is just set it aside. Okay, I don't want to try and take it off or anything. I'm just going to set it aside. Okay, I already took off one of the main board screws and that's in my bowl right here. Well, yep, it's in there. Is it? No, it isn't. I bet you I dropped that in with my gimbals. I bet you I did. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sure I did. So I'm just going to switch that over here. I dropped it in with my gimbals. Okay. All right, so let's finish taking the main board screws out. And for that, we're back on the Phillips. So here we go. Just take your time. Straight out, release the main board, drop the screws in the bucket there. New bucket this time, on a new bucket. And there we go. I don't see any point in explaining this to you because you can see it. But we're just taking the main board screws off. That's all that's happening here. So we can separate it from the chassis. I can already see that the speaker wire is connected to the board. I'm going to go ahead and release that as well because I don't want to pull on this main board and find out that I've yanked the wire out of the speaker or damaged it in any way. And then let's see, this one, that says backlight, and that's also connected to the display. So I'm going to remove that as well. We're just going to pop that off of there. And then the last one is, because I can see it already, this is the connector for the display on the front. And the way these come off, you have to be very gentle with these, right? Don't monkey fist. You just have to be very gentle, but you just pop them up a little bit like that. You just pop that one up with a straight slot screwdriver. And once you've popped it up, be very gentle there, okay? Do not monkey fist this, because if you do, it's going to break and that's it. You're done. The main board will be toast after that. So don't monkey fist it. Just be very gentle with it. Okay, I think I've got all the screws out. I'm going to see if I can move this board, and we'll see what happens when I try and move that board out. And I'm going to move my Express LRS module. I think I got them all. There we go. Gentle, gentle, gentle as she goes. And there's the main board. So that's out. I'm going to set that in the bowl, and now I'm just going to set it aside. Okay, so we're on to the next major component, okay? So the next major component will be the display and the remaining case hardware. So that's easy enough. And this is the display right here. It's got this little plastic H bracket holding it in place. So 4 screws to take that out. Just back these out. And the display probably will just pop right out after that all by itself without too much fuss. Okay, the screws for the display are set aside. I'll use my little tweezers here and get that little escape artist. And we'll drop the bracket in there, and then we'll pick the display up, and there we go. There's the display. And we'll just drop that in a bowl, and that's it. So that's the display and the bracket for the display. That's it. That gets set aside into its own pile. And then also notice we got stuff falling apart on us, right? These are the trim hats. They go on the main board, so those are the trim hats. So now what I'm going to do is remove the remainder of the face hardware. So that's the next step. Those are the trim buttons. That's the trim. Here is the jog dial, and pay attention to the way that one goes in there, okay? There's 2 parts there. There's a metal part up top and a thicker plastic part down there on the bottom, okay? So the plastic goes on the bottom and the metal goes up top. So that's that. Now we can remove the speaker. So 2 screws to remove the speaker. So there's one. That's one speaker screw. Now 2 speaker screws. And the speaker will just pop. In theory, it should just pop right out of there. There we go. Just pops the speaker out. That's that. Now what's left here? We have some more buttons. We have our, that is the model button, right? On the right hand side. Yep, that's the model button. Don't mess those up when you put them back in. Model goes on the right. And then your system button is over here on the left hand side as viewed from the front, and that's connected to the return, page up, page down, and telemetry screen. Okay, so there's that button. And we still have our Express LRS module in there for a reason. I'll get to that in a minute. And then the last thing we need to do is remove the power button. That guy is right there. And there looks like a couple of screws for the retaining strap up front. So I'm going to remove that. That's all these 2 screws do, is hold the retaining, or the neck strap loop, you know, the ring. They hold that little device on there. And I don't see one on the blue case, so we do need to take that. That doesn't come molded in. So 2 screws for that. Okay. And here's the loop that I just took off the front. That's for your neck strap, and 2 screws for that one. And that's it for the case, the front of the case hardware. It's almost completely gutted at this point. We just have the antenna to deal with. And now I'm going to show you why we left that on. Because you can get it, you can remove it without taking the elephant snot off. And here's how you do it. You get a small straight slot screwdriver and just pop it in here. You can pop this back cover off. And once you've popped that back cover off, be careful not to kink your antenna, okay? You don't want to do that. But pop this back cover off. I've already done it once, so I know it comes off. There we go. Just pop that off, and you can see the antenna is right here. And also pay attention, if you look down from the top, you see how that's a rectangle shape in there? Right there, that's a rectangle shape. That's how we're going to drop this antenna through there, all right? So all I'm going to do is just, we're going to be very careful here, because believe me when I tell you, this is not one of those things you want to screw up. You want to be very delicate here with your RF stuff, all right? You don't want to break your solder joints or anything like that. So I'm just going to feed this through the bottom. Very carefully. Feed that through. And I hope I'm not going to be disappointed that this doesn't fit. Let me try and turn it 180 degrees and see if I can get it to come out that way. But right now I'm not having any luck making it through that slot, which is very disappointing to me because I really don't want to remove that elephant snot if I don't have to, because I don't have any. And it looks like I may not have a choice. That's a real bummer. I'm really disappointed in that part. I kind of wish that were big enough to come out, but I really don't feel like kinking it any more than that. So that means the elephant snot has to come off. Unfortunate. I'm disappointed in that one. Got to be honest. I didn't want to do this. I wanted to leave that on there because I don't have any of this stuff. So I'll have to go get some now because you really, you know, it's the antenna, man. That's the main line for your radio. I was really hoping that that H would fit down through that slot, but it didn't work that way. So anyway, there's the antenna removed. There's the ELRS board removed. Now the last thing to take off this case is the antenna. And remember, this twists. I actually messed around with this a little bit when I was inside as well. I couldn't find a way to do it with my hands. It's very stubborn plastic. So, and I also had the main board in the way, so I couldn't take the main board in the way to see exactly how this is done. But the antenna has 2 tabs on it. There's a tall one right there and a tall one right there. And you just saw what I did. I just used some pliers to kind of squeeze it together and then pull the antenna out and then drop the, you know, that's enough to do it. So it's going to scratch it a little bit, but who cares? It's inside the radio. There's no functional damage there. Okay, so that's it for the front case. That is now completely stripped. We can drop our antenna housing right there in our RF bowl and we'll set that aside, okay? And by the way, I'm stacking these bowls, so when I go to put them back together, it all comes in order. The last thing to do is to deal with the back plate. Now, I'll point out that you do not need to install any wiring for the batteries. The replacement cases come with the terminals already installed and soldered, and you have the wiring right there in place, ready to connect. Okay, so you don't have to worry about The 18650 compartment batteries, we're going to just leave those alone. We just have to disconnect it from the daughter card. All right. So I'm going to pop the first lead off of the daughter card and just set that aside. I'm going to pop the next lead off the daughter card and set it aside. And then we have a couple of more wires that are fed through these little connectors into these controls. One's for the pot and another one for the momentary switch. I'm not going to disconnect those because I really don't see a need to do it. All I'm going to do is move my power leads out of the way, and then I'm going to take my screwdriver and just free these from the little capture loops down there. Just free the wires. Just pop them up like that. One there and one here. Okay, so that one's free now, right? And we'll do the same thing on this side. One here and one here. Come on, you. You have to come out. You don't get to stay. I'm sorry. You're getting a new case. That's the way it works. All right, so now all the wires that I need are now free, right? Everything's free. So the next thing we'll do is we'll take the momentary switch off. Let's take that off. And we'll drop that screw in a bowl. We'll take the next screw off for the momentary switch and drop that in a bowl. And then we'll take the pot screws. There's 3 of them on this side. Take those off, drop them in the bowl. Oh, no, not 3, 2. One was a solder blob. Looked like a screw for a second. Okay, so that's that. And now we can take this back board off and pay attention. There are 3 screws on this one, and these are flange head screws holding that board in. So we're going to take these 3 off. There's one. And very short. They're very short and stubby. So just keep that in mind when you put that back together. That's short, very short flange screws for the daughter board. And this daughter board, by the way, is what brings power to the rest of the radio. So essential piece. And then the last screw is right here. And now with that one removed, that should be it. I think that is it on the hardware. I should be able to pull that card out. We already freed our wires. Oh, one of them went back. This wire does not want to leave this case. It wants to stay, but too bad it doesn't get a vote. So now we have our daughter card released. We should be able to remove the switch for the momentary. We can remove the switch for the potentiometer, and the wheel comes with that. We'll set that in our little bucket over here, and then the last thing we need to do is remove that momentary switch. And interesting, that is being stubborn. Maybe it has to slide out from the front. That's kind of what I'm thinking. You got to slide it, maybe. Yep, just a little influence. That's all it needs, a little influence. And there you go. So now the radio is completely disassembled at this point, and we can set this case aside. So we're done with this. I'm just going to take one last look, make sure we got all of our hardware, and I think we do. So we're done with the first case. Now we are literally halfway there. This is the halfway point. We'll set that case aside, and we're going to go. I'm just going to reverse the process now. That's all we're doing here, reversing the process, okay? So we'll start with the back case, and this is why I like the bowls, right? These bowls help keep everything in order. So the last thing that I took out was this little button that needed a little persuasion. So we're going to find out, just figure out how that aligns, and we're going to pop that one back in there. Okay, so momentary switch is in place, and we'll go ahead and put our potentiometer back in place, and that will go in there just like that. You want to make sure while you're going along too that you check the controls and make sure they move correctly. The last thing you want to do is get the whole thing put back together and find out that whatever you did, you caused some binding. You know, you don't want that. All right, what's going on here? There is it looks like that should just set right in there. I'm missing something. Let's turn it a little bit and see what happens. There's a little plastic stop in there, and that plastic stop prevents the wheel from turning too far. There we go. Now do I have it? Okay, there we go. So all I'm looking for here is to make sure that the screw holes are aligned, and I want to make sure that that wheel turns correctly, and it does. Okay, so I'm good with that. And then the last thing we'll do on the boards is we will drop the daughter card in its slot as well. So we'll just set that in there very carefully. Just set it in place. And remember, this one uses the flange screws. So I'm going to screw that board on first. And for this part, I'm going to switch. Now that we're assembling, I'm going to switch over to a different set of screwdrivers because to me, this is where I think a lot of people get in trouble when they start messing around with these. If you're not really careful with this plastic and you cross-thread it, you're done. You can fix it with things like CA or JB Weld and stuff like that. I mean, there are, but why? All you have to do is just be careful. So what I like to do is start it by hand because I want to feel it. I want to feel how it's going in. And what I'm feeling right now is I don't believe that these holes are pre-tapped. So you have to drive that screw in and it's tapping as it goes in. Okay. But just be careful, be gentle, right? And they don't need to be cinched down. This is another area. Just don't monkey fist it. You don't want to cinch this thing down so hard that you crack the standoff where this screw goes in. So don't monkey fist it. Just tight enough. It just needs to not move. That's all you need to do. You also want to be careful because you're self-tapping. You want to be very careful not to have that tip come off on the board and come across the board and scrape it or crack it. That would be bad. Not a good scenario to do that. All right, remember this board gets the short flanged screws. All right. Okay, that's the third one. That's that. And now we can put in, I'm just going to empty, because there's only 4 of them. I'm going to put those right there on the foam, and I'm going to use that to screw in my daughter cards here for the momentary switch. Okay, the momentary switch, there's the hardware, there's the button. You got to make sure that goes into the right spot, right? You got to make sure that goes into the spot on the momentary switch, or I guarantee you'll have problems. Okay, I'm not going to lie, this is a little fiddly. All right, I got to take a look at what's going on here because I'm having a hard time getting that spot lined up. It's funny to me how easy these things go in, but they don't like to come out. Okay, so I thought there was a little hole there, but there's not. That switch just has to make contact with that cross. There is no receptacle for that switch button, okay? So that's what I was looking for. I thought I was missing that. So that's why I just wanted to double check what the heck was going on here. All right, so we'll pop that in. We'll give it a try again. It should just screw into place now that I know there's no receptacle for that. All right, so that's that. And I'm going to pop this screw in place, and we'll see if we can get this to hold down correctly. The main thing I would say about this part of the process is as you assemble, test as you go, okay? Test as you go. Just make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to work. That's the main thing. And if it doesn't, stop and figure it out. Like don't put the whole radio together and then say, well, I put it together and the buttons don't work. Okay, well, you got to sort that out while you're putting it together, So that's that. And I'm going to go ahead while I'm here, and we're going to take care of the potentiometer as well. We'll screw that one in. Trying to make sure I give you guys angles so you can see what I'm doing. So there, I'm just putting the screw in for the potentiometer. There we go. That's better. Remember, don't monkey fist it. If you monkey fist it, you're going to hear a crack, and then you're going to be pissed because from now on, that is not going to be right. Unless you can glue it. Like I said, there are ways to repair, but if you're just careful with it, you don't have to worry about a repair, and it'll be right. You know what I mean? Vern? Okay, so that's that. Now we're going to stop and do a systems check. We're going to make sure the pot spins correctly, and I didn't put the wheel on backwards or upside down or something stupid. Nope, I did not. And then we're going to make sure the momentary switch works. I can feel it depressing, and I can see it hitting the plunger. You see it hitting the plunger in there? So I think that works correctly. I don't feel any binding or any pinching. It feels fine to me. So I'm good with that. It feels correct. All right, so with that done, the next thing I'm going to do is route my wires. And remember, the black ones were underneath the battery wires. So I'm just going to move the battery stuff out of the way. Just take a moment and drop these wires under their hooks. You can use a whatever you want. Just be careful. You don't want to drive a screwdriver tip through there, right? That would be bad. Don't want to cause those kinds of problems. And then there's the battery wire. And we'll connect that on this side. And red's on the right. Another thing you can do, by the way, if you're not sure, let me just show you something if you didn't take pictures or if you're not sure. If you really look closely, you can see that these two pins for this this connector are very close to this bottom pin, this bottom piece of plastic right here. So the pins, those two pins, that pin, they're very close right here to this bottom. You want that same alignment with your connector. The pins need to be close to this side, okay? So that tells me this is the bottom. That's another way, if you're not sure, that you can figure it out. So if you're not sure, yeah, and I got news for you. This one is not red on the right. This is red inboard. Yep, that is red inboard on this one. It's inverted. Okay, so that's it for the battery leads. They are connected now, and I'm going to try and get them. I want them to lay down. I don't want these flopping around in the wind on me. Okay, there's that one, and now we'll get our potentiometer wiring tucked away neatly under the little loop here. There's one, there's two, and then we'll get our battery wire just tucked in on this bottom loop. Yeah, this is a bad example. I'm being a bad example for you guys because I'm using a sharp tip for a hot wire, and that's not a great idea, so don't do it. Bad example. Because you don't, believe me when I tell you, you don't want to do that. You power the radio on, and now there we go. Now I'm using the flat edge of it to pop it into that loop. There we go. Now it's secure. I'm just going to do a visual inspection, make sure I didn't damage my wire, and it looks okay. All right, so this all feels good. That means the back calf is done. Now, I do want to point something out real quick for you guys, because I noticed this when I was taking the first one apart. There's an adjustment screw. In my case, it's right here. So you see that adjustment screw? When you get the case, both of those adjustment screws are pulled out so that they're level with the back of the case. Now, when I was looking at it the first time, I noticed on the original that adjustment screw is extended right here. I spotted that. I'm like, wait a minute, that's got to be something to do with the gimbals. So all you want to do is make sure you take that adjustment screw and make them the same. So if yours is on this side, then do it on this one, right? Do the same thing. If yours is on this side, if that's extended, there's only one. There's two screws, one here, one here. Only one of them is extended. This one's extended, okay? This one is flush with the base. So in my case, I went ahead and extended this one. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And I know it has to do with the gimbals, but I just wanted to point that out so you didn't miss that and wonder why the heck your gimbals aren't working the way they're supposed to. Okay. So that is it for the back case. We're done. I'm going to set that aside, and now we're going to reverse the process. We're going to bring the antenna back in, the main board for the antenna. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, no, that's the way I did it. That's the order. And because I can't slide that T through, it doesn't matter what order I do this in, because I'm just going to drop the antenna in from the top. So I'll just go ahead and do that now, and I'm going to put the cover on while I'm at it. Just make my life easier when I'm assembling it. So... And by the way, because I couldn't get that T through the slot, you do not have to do that step where you take the back cover off. I did that on purpose to see if I could avoid removing the antenna lead from the ELRS board, but obviously that didn't work out. Okay, so just put the cover back on, snap it into place, and that's it. So the cover's back on and ready to go. Now all we have to do is just drop that whole assembly through this top slot and just give it a little push and support the ring, you know, give it a little love. And there is, by the way, yeah, let's be careful about that, because this only goes in a certain way. You want it to lay down back toward the back. So when you put this one in, make sure you put it in the right way. You don't want to screw that up. And it should turn, that is correct. It should turn 90 degrees and then it should lay down. Okay, so I feel good about that. The next thing we'll do is get our ELRS board back out. I will go back later, guys, and find some material to drop on here to secure this, but right now I don't have any, so we're just going to have to live without it. And I also want to try and remove what's there so I can see what I'm doing. Also notice that I'm being very careful with this adapter, because I do not want to stress this adapter and pull the wiring out. You really got to be careful with this stuff, because this is the ball game, right? If you screw this part up, you're done. You're going to need a new antenna, a new module, whatever. Or you better be really good at soldering, because those wires inside there, they're really, really small. So I would just say be super careful doing this part. And then when you pop this connector on, you also want to be very, very careful that you get it over the outside, and that pin, there's a very small pin in there that's going to make contact. I like to give them a little, when I have to do this, I like to give them a little spin and make sure that when I'm spinning them, I feel it moving freely on the outside of that housing, okay? So just set it on there, give it a little spin, make sure it's moving freely, and then give it some pressure. And when you do that, it should pop into place. Now, they should stay there, but like anything else, that elephant snot is not stain relief. It is strain relief, right? That's the idea. So as you can see, it'll turn, right? That's correct. It's turning on the mount, and I can turn it back that way. So I'm convinced that that's on there correctly. Now I just need to set that aside, because remember, that's the way we did it when we disassembled. All right, so that's the RF bowl. That's empty. Now we're coming up on the hardware. And we need to put our controls back in. All right. So this one's pretty easy because it's a system button and it's unique, right? That one just drops in right there. And then this one, this is the jog wheel. Remember what I told you, plastic on the bottom, metal on the top. And then our model button. And you also want to make sure you put them in the right way, because it really annoy you. I don't know if it'll even go the wrong way. It might not. It might not. It is keyed. Yeah, I don't think it can go in the wrong way. So just make sure the letters are up, okay? That's what you're after. You need to make sure the letters are up. So that's the buttons. Now we can put our speaker back in. And you want the speaker, remember this, whoops, the speaker's got a magnet and it grabbed a screw. Remember, this is the front of the speaker. This is the back of the speaker. You want the front of the speaker facing you. So this goes down, all right? So that goes down. And then we can put our little speaker hold down strap on. There we go. And remember, don't monkey fist this stuff. Just gentle. Just enough pressure to keep it from moving. You don't want stuff in there rattling around. Whoop. Man down. Lost my driver. All right. Just tight enough to hold it down, guys. You don't monkey fist these things. It's plastic. It's not metal. It's not, you don't need to monkey fist it. And the plastic, if you just screw it down tight enough, that plastic's going to form around the screw. It's going to self-tap, and it's going to be on there very tight, believe me. Not going to go anywhere. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to do. All right, next up, we're going to put our neck strap ring on. So 2 screws here. You see why these bowls are so important? Because I'm not trying to figure out what goes where. If you take all these screws apart and you drop them into one bowl, when it comes time to put them back together, you're going to be like, okay, where the hell does this go? Trust me. Don't do it. Just don't do it. This is a much easier, tried and true method. I did my TX16 this way, and it works flawlessly, and that's a lot more parts in that one than this one. So trust me on that one. Definitely use a bowl. Okay, looks like my stuff is falling out. So a little premature on the buttons. Should have put the loop in first. All right, so there we go. I'm just kind of lining that up. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm just going to line this up, and it is keyed, by the way. I do want to show you that it's keyed, and you have to match that key on the front, okay? So just keep that in mind. Looks like I was premature putting the button hardware in. Too early, too soon. Okay, there we go. The neck strap ring is installed, and I've got to drop my hardware back in where it goes. So jog dial, you get back in there, and the model button will make sure that's upright. Okay. There's that. And then we have our power button. So power button drops in there. You want to make sure the little tick mark is up top, aiming to the top. That looks like an oval. That could go in any way. And then the last 2 things are the little trim buttons, but I'm going to hold on to those because I have a feeling they're going to be problematic for the moment, because these, they pushed in from the back, and I think you need the motherboard in place for those to stay on there. So I'm just going to leave those for the moment. I'm going to set those aside for just a moment. We're going to hang on to that and come back to those later. Okay, next up in the next bowl is our display hardware. So easy enough. We will drop the display in first. And then we'll get our little H ladder device, or hold down, and get that arranged on there correctly. One little tip putting these together, now we're getting into wires. Make sure your wires are free and where they're supposed to be and not underneath things. You want to make sure your power wire's free to move where it's supposed to and that your display wire's where it's supposed to. You just want to make sure of those things. And it looks to me like that's got a little bit of a bend in it. Interesting. I'm not going to try and put any pressure on that display, so I'm going to put it in with the bend up. And I'm just going to drop my screws in right here on my foam and set the bowl aside. And we'll get these guys screwed in. Remember, these are self-tapping. Don't monkey fist. It is so easy to crack these things. But this case material, I'm certainly not a chemical engineer, I can tell you that. But I'm kind of curious about the material because I wonder if they bake a certain amount of elasticity into it, like rubberize it somehow, to help with things like this, where it's hard enough to tap and hold firm, but it's got a little bit of pliability so that it can accept a little bit of pressure. I'm just not sure. I'm sure there's some consideration when they engineer these things. I'm sure of that. These materials, these plastics and resins and all that good stuff. All right, so there's the display, last screw here. All right. All right, that's the display bucket. And next up is the mainboard bucket. So the mainboard, we're going to get our Express LRS module the heck out of the way. We're going to make sure that all of our wires are where they need to be before we go any further. I've got both of my display wires right here. Here's my speaker wire. Remember, that goes underneath, remember? So I'm going to make sure that's pulled out of the way. And we're just going to carefully drop the main board in place. Now notice I didn't even take the buttons off on the main board. I left them in. But I can tell you there are little capture ridges on these buttons, so those have to get set underneath the case. So when you put it back together, you want to go in from the top and just kind of slide it into place, and then don't forget about your wires and your ribbons. So there's one wire, and here is another. I'm just going to feed that through the bottom. Carefully, just easy. Move your Express LRS module out of the way, just kind of tuck that up there. All right, now we're getting close, and we're going to slide this board in there. Make sure our buttons are underneath the capture. You don't want them above the capture because that'll throw off your alignment and everything else. It just won't fit, and you'll be cursing and upset and wondering why the heck you watch my channel for talking you into doing this kind of stuff. Okay, my display ribbon fell back down, so I got to get that back up. Where'd you go? It's hiding. It's being shy. Tweezers help here. Of course, I've got elephant snot all over my tweezers. All right. Let's just try and get this ribbon cable. Stop being shy, buddy. You just got to come on out. Come on out. Enjoy the sunshine. Okay. There we go. Now back to the switches up top to make sure they're inside the case housing. I just really want to make sure that's right. And again, this is one area, again, you do not force it. If it's not lined up right, trust me when I tell you to take your time and sort it out. Do not force this. When everything's right, it will just kind of drop into place and you'll feel it. Oh, and by the way, I see what's going on here. It's the bottom part of the case that's got the ports that's holding me up. Okay. So let's see here. I'm going to just check. The buttons move. I don't feel any binding there. I don't feel any binding there. I can see the standoffs in the right spots. And on the bottom, nope, we're not set right. So see what I mean? On the bottom, the SD card is not where it belongs. So I don't like what's going on here for that reason. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to put the ports in first on the bottom. Yep, did not like that. I don't want to put any pressure on this board. I just want to... All right, I'm still not getting that SD card in the slot. There it is. Now I've got it in the slot. Okay, now let's try it again. The main thing is you got to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Okay. Do I have freedom of movement on this wire? No, I do not. Okay, now I do. Just checking for alignment and making sure that things are seating correctly. And I still see there's still a problem over here that I'm missing, and it's probably related to the jog dial. That's my guess. Oh, I see. I see what's going on here. I see what's happening here. Just a cotton picking minute. The jog dial has to be, okay, this is tricky. The jog dial has to be fed through the encoder right there. You see that little hole right there? That jog dial post has to be fed through that encoder. Otherwise, it ain't going to go in. So this is going to be exciting. Yeah, that's going to be exciting. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, you're going to need some coordination here, boys. Oh, of course, my model button just fell out. So I got to back up. Got to back up. Yeah, all kinds of stuff's falling apart on me here. All right, that's okay. That's all right. You just got to be patient, man. This is kind of why I did it live, so you guys can see, firsthand what goes into this. It is definitely a little fiddly. What I think I'm going to try and do, if I can get away with it, I'm going to see if I can put the rotary encoder or the jog wheel in the encoder first. I'm going to try that and see if that works. But that's what was going on. This jog dial, that has to go in there. That has to go in there. And then the bottom is the button. Okay? So that was definitely my problem, no doubt about it. But now we get to play around with all these cables and wires again, which is fun. Interesting assembly conundrum here. Interesting. How do you hold that in while getting it into the case and not having these buttons go all over the place? Interesting conundrum. But all I can say, fellas, be patient. You can do it. It's just a Lego set, really, right? You just got to take certain steps. See if I can put these two together and get them to come through there at the same time. I can, but boy, I'll tell you what, that jog dial just wants to be anywhere but where it's supposed to be. I can tell you that. It's an interesting little problem here. Okay, let's see if we can get the ports down on the bottom lined up. And I also need to check. I'm just going to look at the bottom and see. Yeah, that rotary alignment is not right. The encoder wheel is shifted. Oh, damn it. The power button came out. This is going to be a fight, man. You guys may as well get your popcorn out because this is going to be interesting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the edge board. That's in my way, and I need that out of the way right now. I just can't deal with that. I can't deal with that. And then the power button is facing up. The model button, yep, the model button came out again. Okay, all right. This is going to be a fist fight. A live stream fist fight with the radio. Huh. Okay. All right. Game on. I'm ready. I shall win. It's just a question of when. That's all it is. You guys come back here at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning and I'll have it done. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, fellas, that is a challenge, man. That is a challenge. That is a challenge. Because you have a lot of things that you have to get right, and they all want to move. Like, nothing wants to stay where it's supposed to stay. Okay. And, oh, shit. See? See what I mean? Now my RF wire is gone. It's gone. Come on, you. Can you guys work with me just a little bit here? All right, let's try it again. There is one wire. Be very careful with these ribbon cables too. I'm not allowing the tweezers to apply full pressure to that ribbon, by the way. You just got to be careful with those things. Yeah, boy, this is a you need 4 sets of hands for this. Come on, ribbon cable, come out. Being stubborn. Come out of there. This ribbon cable's shy. Okay, now let's see if we can get it to settle in this time. Not gonna lie, this has been a challenge. Okay, now the buttons. And I'm gonna, now that I've got it in there, I'm gonna flip it over and see. All right, I'm getting close. Getting close. But what I don't like is this is definitely binding. So it's not seated correctly. The ports on the bottom are looking good. I see the ports where they're supposed to be. So USB, the SD card, and the audio jack, they are where they're supposed to be. Up top is not where it's supposed to be yet either. I can see that. They're not setting down in there just yet. So something is binding still. And I'm not sure what it is. Got my wires pulled through. Oh, I see what it is. Damn, it's the thing that started all this nonsense in the first place. It's the rotary encoder fell out again. Do you believe that? Oh my gosh. All right, come on. Oh, I heard the button drop. Oh my gosh, this is a struggle. This is a struggle. It fell out of there again. I got to think about this. We'll get it. You know, it's just a question of getting it, all right? But yeah, it's a struggle, man. That is definitely a struggle. Interesting problem here. Okay. All right. This is the way we're going to be about it. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to think about this. It's just all, I wonder if putting it upside down would help. I wonder if turning it upside down and installing it with the rotary encoder leaning into its slot, I wonder if that would help out. Let's try it. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is, it's difficult. I mean, the thing is, it's not complicated, right? There's just a lot of moving parts all at the same time. Okay, so this time, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and use gravity and see if I can get gravity to help hold that encoder where it needs to be. And let's see if I don't know if I can get a hand on the other side. That would help too. Maybe if I get some tweezers on that thing. No, that's not going to be good. Oh, button fell out. Oh, God dang. All right. All right. There we go. Got to try it again. Yeah. Wow. I think the Radiomaster TX16S was easier to put together than this. I really do. I don't remember getting stuck this long. And again, it's not like it's complex. It's just that you have a lot of moving parts all at the same time. This is like it's a pop quiz, man. And this display ribbon has got to be, it just does not want to be out in the open air, in the sunlight. Okay, come on, ribbons. Come on, cables. Isn't this something? The cables, every single cable on this thing right now is going where I don't want it to be. There's the Express LRS antenna cable. Come on. Stay out in the open. Okay, here we go again. Got everything. Everything's queued up, but boy, let's see. Lesson is you got to keep it kind of flat. If you tilt it too much, man, the model button just falls right out. Does not want to stay in its spot. Okay, do we have it? Okay, the good news is the encoder is in its spot. I can see that. The buttons up top are above the case line. I can see that. And now, what is the problem here? We got it? Oh, I got it. Woo! Okay. Woof. I was getting a little nervous there. You guys are going to have to not see this get finished online. Okay, it's done. All right, I got it. I'm going to hold that board because, buddy, I do not want that coming loose again. Okay, so we got to check. There's the power button. That feels good. Oh, look at the model button. You see it? It's still trying to fight, man. Look at that. Look at that. That model button does not want to be in its spot. I don't want to take this whole thing apart. I'm going to flip it over. Oh, man. I can see another problem here, and that's the SD card. Yeah, oh my gosh. I had it. The SD card needs to come out. Just take it out. It's in the way. That's in the way, something fierce. And what is the deal with this model button? Okay, I got the model button now. I got to try it one more time. I didn't have to move much, but boy, that was... Okay, now do we have it? No, model button's still a little cockeyed. Yep. Whatever happened, I got something discombobulated again. I had it for a minute, man, except for the model button. It was all good except for that. Wow, this is something else. Oh, I bet I know what it is. I don't see my freaking power button down at the bottom. It's in the way. It is definitely in the way. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Come on. Come out of there. And, of course, the rotary popped out of its hole. I got to tell you, boys, this is rough. This is hard to do. I'm really kind of annoyed. Got to be honest with you. I'm a little annoyed right now because this is challenging. It shouldn't be this hard to change a radio case out. Okay, I guess what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little work on these wires because the wires are part of the problem. They are part of the issue that is killing me right now. So what I'm going to do is get some tape. Boy, this is an interesting little set of issues here. So I'm going to get a little bit of tape, and I'm going to use tape to help me out. So a little bit of tape on that wire. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on this wire. Not much, just a little, just to hold things where I need them to be for a minute. And I'm going to put a little, I don't know, very small amount of tape on these two. Even smaller, just a little bit of tape. Need these two to stay together and stop resisting. Okay. Now, I still do think that putting it in upside down is the way to go. And we'll put the encoder or the jog wheel back in the encoder again. The model button's in place, power button's in place. I see everything in place where it needs to be. SD card, definitely take that out. I think that was definitely a mistake to have that in there. And we will try it yet again. When it comes to computers and what they don't understand is that I'm going to win. It's not a question of if I'm going to win. I will win. It's just a question of when. Okay, do we have it? Nope, look at that. Now I don't even know where the model button went. It still popped out of there. I got it. I got the board in, of course, but the model button decided to run for it. Where are you, model button? You're right here. Of course, that time, that was like the easiest one ever, but the model button escaped. Okay. And, of course, the rotary dial again. All right, let's try it again. Tape helped a lot with the wires. That definitely helps a lot because you're not screwing around with them anywhere near the way you used to be. Oh, damn, that model button is just killing me. I don't want to use grease on it because I don't want to gum it up. So I know that that's an option, is to put a little, some kind of material on there to hold it, but I really just don't want that button gummed up. And of course, now my wires are starting to escape, even though I taped them down. Well, you better be able to laugh at it, because if not, you're going to just pull your hair out. Okay. Try it again. Model button's in place. Wires are in place. Okay, here we go. I have a feeling about this one. I think this one, we're going to get it. I'm going to put my hand on the back of that scroll wheel to hold that into place as I set this down. Got that in place. All the wires are out where they need to be. Okay. I have a feeling about this one. There, look at that. All right, system button, model button, yay. Jog dial works. Okay, now one other thing before I do anything else. Remember the trim tabs. I believe they drop in from the top. Boy, I'm really sorry about that delay, guys, but you know, I told you, live stream, you never know. You never know with these things what's going to happen. So these drop in from the top and they're keyed, they're square. So I just want to put one on there and I just want to make sure that that is correct, that that's the way they're supposed to go. And I think it is, but man, I gotta, oh, I see what's going on. The top is not all the way seated. The bottom is seated, the top's not all the way seated. That's the problem. All right, come on. We're gonna finish this, man. Is this wire's in the way? Express LRS wire. Now, can we seat correctly? No, not yet. Now are we seated correctly? Okay, I feel like we're seated correctly now. Now, okay, now the trim switches work. Okay, so let me show you what I was looking at. Look right here. You see the headphone jack, the USB jack. We can get rid of the tape now. We can get that out of the way. That's what you're looking for. Just make sure that's seated correctly, and all your switches need to be underneath the plastic housing, okay? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That was a challenge. Now, before anything else happens, everything is seated correctly. My ports on the bottom are correct. And my jog dial, that's the big one. That was the pain in the neck. That's rolling freely. These buttons feel good. Power button feels good. Trim feels good. And these buttons feel good. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. You've got to check these things before you move on. Because if you don't and something's wrong, you are really just going to be angry with yourself. Okay, because you're going to find out that you have to take it all apart again and put it back together. Okay, so now what I want to do, now that that part's done, I want a couple of screws in here because the last thing I want to do is go through that again. So there we go. We're going to get a couple screws on here just to hold everything in place. And there's one on the main board. And remember, the main board screws are flanged. So keep that in mind. And do not monkey fist this part. You would really be upset with yourself at this point if you did that. And I'm going to get one more screw in over here. Boy, I am so sorry that it took me that many tries to get this right. But what I would say, guys, is upside down. That helps. And use a little bit of tape to hold those wires together because that really helped out a lot. Because the wires just want to run. You know, they don't want to stay where you need them to stay. But I would also encourage you be very, very careful about this part because these especially the ribbon cable, that is a very delicate wire. You don't want to bend it or kink it. So just be very careful about it, okay? All right, now that I've got that done, I'm going to slide the ribbon wire back in. So hopefully you can see what's going on there. We're just going to slide that back in very gently. Make sure it slides fore and aft, or up and down in this case with the radio housing correctly. And then once you've got that done, then just take a tool and push gently down on the latch. Gentle, gentle, gentle until you feel it click. And then give that wire just a little gentle tug and make sure it's in there. And I got to be honest, I don't really like what I see. I feel like it's not in quite far enough. So I'm going to pop this loose again, and I'm going to try it just one more time. I'm going to try reseating it because I don't feel like it's in far enough. All right, I guess that is it. I feel it hitting bottom. So again, I'll use a tool, gently latch it into place, and that's it, okay? All right, the next thing we'll do is connect the speaker wire. I can get rid of that tape. We'll connect the speaker wire. And let's see, that is, I'm just looking at the pins, and the pins are closer to the top, so this gets flipped over. So be careful. Be careful here. Yep. That's that. That will pop in right there. Okay, that's good. And now we can put our Express LRS board back on. So I'm going to reconnect my antenna. And same procedure, right? Just be gentle here. Make sure you got that housing on the outer portion of the board and then give it a twist. Gently make sure it spins, okay? That should move freely. It should not be bound up in any way. All right, now we'll put the board right there in its spot, and it looks like let's see. I'm sure I have that. I'm sure. Oh, that one's taped. I see what they did. There's a standoff right there, but it's got some kind of cover on it, like a cap, like electrical insulating tape is what's going on there. Okay, so that's in its spot. And I think on the Express LRS board, we use these little 1.5 mil hex heads. So we'll put that in there. And remember, these are machine screws because they're going into a metal standoff. So that's why they're different. Okay, that's that one. Again, don't monkey fist. Please don't monkey fist it. Just gentle. And then there's the second one. Okay, and now with that done, we can go ahead and connect our Express LRS module to the main board. That goes right there. And then this one, this was the backlight, I think. That comes over here, and that one inserts like this. Okay. So now we can lay our wires down, and now we're rounding third and heading for home. Now it's time to put a few more motherboard screws in, so we'll just do that. That was that a challenge or what, man? Woof. Okay, motherboard screws. All right, now before I go any further, I'm going to do another test, and I also have to put the other trim pot, the other trim stick on. So I'm going to use my tweezers for that. That was helpful. My big old meat hooks do not do well with these little tiny parts like that. There we go. All right, so that one's on there now. All right, we've got trim. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to just set these screws aside. I'm going to put the SD card back in its slot, and hopefully I get that right. So here we go. SD card's back in its slot. Now what I want to do is I want to try the batteries. I want to power it up because we're at a point now where we can power it up, right? And the reason I want to power it up is because I want to make sure before I go any further that everything that I've done to this point actually works correctly. Now, obviously, I can't check the gimbals and that kind of thing, but we can at least power the radio on and verify that it works. Because at this point, it's a good stopping point before going any further. Now, I'm going to just power it on. And I see welcome to EdgeTX. I see my screen, and I did hear the audio prompt. So far, everything looks okay at this point. All right, so we'll just go ahead and turn the radio off. We'll disconnect, and now that we're done with that, we can finish the job. So the job, I have a few more things to do. We'll put the, I know there's another motherboard screw at least. Put that in. And earlier, I kind of misplaced one of them, and I borrowed a screw from another bowl. So I have that screw sitting there. I'm not sure where that one goes. So let's get the gimbals back out. They're next. And I think once I'm done, I'll figure out where oh, there it is. I can see it right here. There's the other motherboard screw right there. It's flanged. That's what you're looking for, is the flange tip. That's got the little washer kind of built into the screw. That's what we're looking for the main board, motherboard, main board. Okay. All right, now our motherboard or main board is in, and we can do our gimbals. So remember, the gimbals, you have to do a little, don't just screw them in. You got to figure out which one's which. So this one, the center, the vertical axis is sprung. So that tells me this goes on the right-hand side. And I know from my disassembly that the Hall effect sensor on the right-hand side was facing outboard. So that gimbal will go right there, and we'll just drop some screws in. See, if we do production videos on YouTube, all of that time I spent monkeying around putting that board in, that would have all been edited out. You guys wouldn't have seen that. That's why live streams are kind of cool because you get to see what I see, for the first time. Now, that's what also makes YouTubers look like they all know what they're doing, or at least some of them, like they know what they're doing. It's because they can edit out the stuff where the mistakes happen. So all you see is the success, right? So here we go. Whoops. All right, I got one more screw on this one. One more gimbal screw. All right, this one's going to be a little bit of a challenge because I can't reach it. So I'm going to use the tweezers to set it first. I can't get my finger in there. I know what'll happen is I'll try and it'll wind up dropping and falling somewhere that I'll have to take half the oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. It'll fall apart and you end up taking half the radio apart just to find this one silly screw. And it's not about the screw. I have other screws. That's not my problem. The problem is that it'll wind up touching something you don't want it to touch. There we go. Okay. So now that one's in there. We'll just drive that one in the hole. And let's go ahead and connect it while we're here. Remember what I told you earlier about leaving the wires lay the way they want to lay naturally? And Red is right. You can see right away. I don't have to figure it out, right? The wire's telling me where it goes. That's why I don't try to straighten the wires. You just leave them. And that way, when you're putting it back together, they just tell you where to go. They just like, hey, I go here. And there you go. That's it. So that one's done. Now we can do the last gimbal. And also, remember what I said on this one, it was outboard, right? On this one, the spring tensioner was inboard, okay? So just keep that in mind. And this is my throttle stick because it's not self-centering, so that's correct. And that means it's on the left-hand side of the radio, which is over here, which is correct. So this is the correct gimbal. All right, so we'll just drop this one in right there. And we'll get our 4 screws left. The other thing I like about using the bowl system is not only does it allow you to cleanly reverse the process, but it also lets you know if you have a spare screw at a point in time. So if you come up with a spare in a certain segment of your reassembly, then you know that you missed something. And you can stop right there and look at it because you know what section of the equipment you're working on. All right? So it's just a good little technique. We are rounding third and heading for home, guys. We're almost there. We're almost there. Oops. This one's going to be a challenge just like the last one, I guess. Good news, this screwdriver is magnetized, so it's holding onto that screw. Okay, good. That's another technique, by the way. Use a magnetized screw. Hey, the wow stick I was telling you guys about earlier, that actually comes with one. It's got a magnetizer right there, so you can just rub your screwdriver on that, and it does magnetize your screwdriver. Okay. All right, so let's see. This one, red is on the right, right? That's what I said. Red is right, so that one is going to want to go right here. This is another one of those areas, man. You just got to take your time. Do it right. Is this right? Red is on the right, not the left, John. That's your right. That's your military right. The other one was your civilian right. Okay, let's try it again, knucklehead. See, even when you have mnemonics, it's still easy to screw it up. Okay, so there's that. I think all the wires are connected. That's my last bowl. The only thing left now is the case bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check my Express LRS antenna real quick. And yes, I will put elephant snot on there. So don't even, I just don't have any. But guys, believe me when I tell you this cover is coming back off, and that's going to get a dose of adhesive to hold that on there. And there we go. The back is now connected. The back section is connected, and we can drop the back case on. I'm going to put the rocker switches in the middle position. Slide the back case into place, and then we have 4 screws left. Just drop those here on the foam, and we'll go to work. Whoops, not this one. We need a 2, this one is a 2mm for the case screws. That's a 2mm driver for the case screws. And again, I'm not using the wow stick for this because I want to feel what's going on. I want to feel it. I'm paying attention to the tension that I feel on this driver. So I want to feel it. And there we go. Don't monkey fist it. Can't tell you how many times all you do is just go to the stop. That's it. And stop, 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 stop. Can't tell you how many times I've seen people wrench these videos and whatever, you know. Just a little tension. That's all you need. Okay. And the last thing are the grips. Let's go ahead and put the grip covers back on. I can never figure out which one's which. Okay. So I like to start on the inside. I like to put these little tabs in because they're the most fiddly thing to do. So I like to put those on first. So get those 4 lined up, and then once those 4 are lined up, the rest is kind of easy. You just put these little posts in, put this little post in, and then stick the edge down, and that's it. You're done. And we'll do the same thing with this guy, of course. Start with the tabs. It doesn't matter. Do what works for you, but this I like this way the best. It seems less fiddly to me that way. There we go. And since we're going to fire it up and take a look at things, I may as well get the stick ends out. And we'll screw those in, and then we will go through. We have one last thing to do. We're not done yet. If you guys are thinking about leaving, don't leave yet. You do have one other thing you need to do. So the last thing, we got our stick ends screwed in. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the radio on. And this is probably one of the most critical phases of the entire operation. And I'm not even kidding about this, right? This is serious business. You now have to hit the system button and obviously navigate around and check all your buttons. Okay, so I'm hit that system button, that works. I'll hit the model button. I see that works. I can page right, I can page left. Okay, hitting return escapes. And if I press and hold the telemetry screen, I got that. Okay, so all my nav buttons work. My system button works, my model button works. Okay, that's the first one. Now the trim. So I can see the trim slider going up over here on the left. That works. Trim right, trim right on this side, and trim up. Okay, so those all work. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to look at the system calibration screen. So I'm going to hit the system button, and I'm going to hit page left and page left again, and we're going to go down and take a look at debug for analog. And I want to make sure that my sticks move. So here's what I'm paying attention to. I'm going to move my aileron first, and I can see that one moving right here. So I have clean signal on my aileron. That's good. Now there's my elevator. That's right here. So we have movement there. Now I will move my throttle. That one is right here. And then my rudder. That one's right here. Okay, so that works. I see all my analogs for my control sticks work. And now I'm bringing my brightness up, of course. So that's A5, and I'm seeing movement there. And that's it. That's it for the sticks and sliders. Now I want to see the keys. So I'll go over to keys. Turn the brightness down so you can see. There's keys. And I want to check all of the keys on this radio. So SA. That's SA, right? Okay, there it is. Whew, I thought it didn't work. It's a latching momentary. Man, for a second I was like, oh no. Okay, so there's SA. I'm going to latch it. You see the arrow down now, so that's good. SB is in the middle position. Now it's down, mid, and up. Okay, that's good. SC, all right, that's in the middle position now, so now it's down, mid, and up. SD is over here on the right. That's another momentary. That looks good. And then SE is a non-latching momentary, so there's SE moving. That looks good. And for trim, I already checked the trim, but you can see the trim buttons highlighting, so we already checked that, so I'm okay with that. And then, of course, you can hit telemetry, You can hit the telemetry button, the model button, or page right button rather, or page left button. Actually, I see an error there. Look at that. I think that's a bug in the code because I'm hitting page right and telemetry is lighting up. And then when I hit page left, the model button is lighting up. And then when I hit the model button, nothing lights up. Interesting. That might be a bug. That might be a bug in the hardware because I know when I press the model button, it goes to the right place. Hopefully the Edge guys are watching and they'll fix this. So that goes to the right place. And if I hit page right, that is doing the right thing. So yeah, I'd say there's probably a bug in Edge TX on this radio. All right, guys, that wraps up the video. That's all I wanted to show you and that's how to transition the Radiomaster Pocket from one case to another. And I would say that overall very successful. I do apologize for the amount of time I got stuck on the main board, but at least you saw what to do, right? Now we figured that out, cracked the code. Now you know what to do. I guess the last thing to do, make sure as you look around the radio, just take a look and make sure everything's lined up. Make sure your ports are where they're supposed to be. And I would say that that is accurate. That looks good to me. Make sure those ports are where they're supposed to be and that all your buttons, freedom of navigation on your buttons, and that's it. So that's how you ensure you get a successful transfer. And I'd say that's job done. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to bother checking the comments on this one because it would probably be really difficult to figure out what you were saying and when you were saying it. So I don't have a way to correlate that because I'm having to go back. But yeah, there you go. I'd say overall the process very simple except for the one section on the main board. Everything else, as you saw, was pretty simple to do. It was not very challenging at all. But now I've got a blue Radiomaster Pocket. And I got to tell you guys, when I first started this, there are two reasons I'm not going to switch it back. The first reason is because when I first started this, I looked at this case and I thought, man, I really like the way that looks better than the blue one. And I thought I would keep it. But then I knew I had to do this video. And so I had to transfer this one to this one. And I thought, well, when I'm done with the video, I'll just put it back. But the two reasons I'm not going to do it is because now that I see the blue on there with all the black contrast, I do like that a lot. I think it actually looks pretty cool. All the black and the blue together, it's like a bruise. So I like that a lot. And then the other thing that I like, the other reason I'm not going to change is because I don't really want to do that motherboard thing again. I don't care to do that again. So I'm gonna stick with what I got here. This is going to be the blue Radiomaster Pocket on RC Video Reviews. So anyway, that's it, fellas. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know sometimes this kind of thing can be like watching paint dry, but if you're going to buy a color case and you need a little bit of help on how to go through it, now you know exactly how the process works on this radio. Not too challenging. I'd say the hardest part, obviously, was the main board. All right, guys, if you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button, I would definitely appreciate that. It always helps the YouTube algorithm to see that people like the videos. So hit a thumbs up, leave a comment after it's done. And that's all I got for today. I hope you liked the video. And if you did, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video out, do all the good stuff, leave a comment. And that's all I've got for today. Take it easy and go fly something.